Yes. So waiting for the guy to come back to give him 30 seconds. The time, guy. At 7 o'clock, so with that, I will call the meeting to order. Do some introductions and roll call. I will start with you. The guy around your street, utility superintendent.
John Jacob, 472 East Quill Lake Drive. Cecil Cleveland, 40 Clear Drive.
Dan Rippey, 126.7. Jim Hoggle, 154 West Clear Lake Drive.
Johanna, 208 West Clear Lake Drive.
Bert Elliott, 1058 South Clear Lake Drive.
James Anderson, Wellington.
Mike Hawk, attorney to the planning commission. For everyone. Like to get an approval on the meeting agenda. If we have any changes or anything other than that, I'll look for approval for meeting agenda.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Fine. Okay. Next, we have had 3 meetings since the last time we met. Since the last official meeting. 2 additional, I'd like to go through and let's get an approval of minutes to the one. First, regular meeting from August 5th. Everybody had a chance to look at them ahead of time and make any necessary changes. It's intact, I will. Any changes?
I move that we approve the August 5th regular session minutes as written.
Bert, I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And let's look at the August 14th special session. Hearing no changes, if somebody would like to make a move to accept that.
I move that there's no changes for October 14th or 28th. I move that the vote be accepted as written.
Second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Good. We'll be very ones. No budget items at this time. Did want to provide an update on the minor subdivision for Clinrod, the Hagerman property. I know that's been long and drawn out. We had a couple of special sessions because of that, and as of today, we now do have the right of way and the wastewater utility easement recorded or through the recorder's office, so all the i's are dotted and t's are crossed. You have the copies. I think this was the last piece we were waiting for. I think Mr. Hagerman was very patient with us and worked well with us throughout the process. I'm not sure I would have been as pleasant as he was, but we do appreciate his patience and us getting through that, since that's not something we do very often. I just want to kind of give an update on that. That is done and moving forward. And with that piece of business done, we now have the yacht club that is submitted their petitions today, and that will move through the process. So timing was good. We received the official closing of the properties, and we're ready to move forward with the yacht club with their ILP and 2 variances that they're looking forward to. So that'll happen within the next couple of days, actually the next month. So that's kind of an update on that entire process. Old business, zoning administration, we have, looked at, an outsourcing opportunity. I think, we talked about that in a special meeting. And initially, there's gonna be three phases, six, that we focus on. The initial phase is a pre-application. What happens with that, and we have a number of requests, what that looks like, what we're gonna be doing, work through that. And then there's the application process itself. Once the application is submitted, what do we look at in terms of responsibilities and consistencies? And then we have a third aspect. Slips my mind here for a minute, Dan, you could
The formal approval.
formal approval process, right? Thank you. And at this point in time, we're still going to have the approval done through the plan commission president, such that that takes some of the liability off of an outside source out of the hometown initiatives, and it puts that back on us. So that we look at everything and we have one final look and say so before that happens. So we actually have somebody from the town signing that off. I thought what I would do is hand it over to Dan, and he can kind of talk just a little bit about some of the progress we've made from an executive committee standpoint and on where we're going to formalize this process.
Okay, so we have generated and reviewed this. Started our review at the executive level of a traveler for helping us track the progress through each phase of the 6 phases. Since we're switching responsibilities across those phases, it's we felt it important to track the progress and to make sure that we have a full accounting of all articles of evidence that are delivered in each of those phases. We've looked at an electronic version of our file cabinet also this morning, using OneNote as a process to capture all deliverables on all applications. And of course, that will be backed up on our server and forever in the records, electronic records of the town. It will also build a comprehensive package should things, need to support any legal actions that might come in front of us. We have at our special session, we had agreed on moving forward with the trial period to begin engaging hometown initiatives pending council approval, final approval at our next council meeting. And we've outlined what the metrics of performance are to measure over a 4-month period the performance of hometown initiatives and also position us at the end of that 4 months to make a decision and final recommendation whether to make that a permanent process for us. So, did I miss anything?
No, I don't think you did. The only thing we did talk about, and this is probably something I know Bill has really brought up, and that is we're going to have a kickoff session with them for the trial period, so that we're sitting around the table with an understanding of who's doing what the responsibilities are, and we can get that outlined very specifically. I know we have it documented, but in a working session to make that work, that really is what part of this trial period is for, is to take the processes, let's figure out where there are holes in it or areas that can be shored up a little bit and make that happen. So that's kind of the initial plan on that. Any questions or thoughts on the zoning administration role? Other than.
So we're not gonna have a separate council meeting, I'll make this the regularly scheduled one, is that?
Yeah, at this point, that's nice.
So that date is Wednesday. That's 20 or 18.
2 weeks.
And
2 weeks.
18,
17.
17, something.
So the,
18.
18.
Yeah, all right.
you know, so the objective is to get the other products done
Yep.
between now and then. So that we're ready to go.
Right.
Okay. Very good. Okay. We'll move on. One of the topics that came up early on while I was working through the process was that we had a number of ILPs that were expired. Some of them were over a year. I think we mentioned this previously, that our ILPs coincide with with Steuben County. We have some projects that are very large that are definitely going to go more than a year. We have some, I have one in particular that the project didn't start for 11 months and we weren't aware of that at one point, and then all of a sudden we found out, hey, the ILP is, they're starting to work, but they had the ILP and we checked on it, it was 11 months old. So during that process, that was going to expire. But there were a number of them that expired. We sent out I sent out a letter to those that were expiring and said, look, as the plan commission, we're going to look at this and propose a different solution. We're going to give you 3 months while we work through this process and let you know what that transition is going to be. So there's a couple of different options we could do, and I've looked at this with Steuben and other counties. They have extensions of 6 months or 1 year. And a 6-month extension is half of the price or half the cost of what the original ILP was. And a 12-month extension would be the same price to extend it for 1 more year, the same fee, I should say, for 1 more year. But I think while we're running into that, we need to move forward with something. Right now, the UDO said it's at the discretion of the zoning administrator, whether or not there's a fee, or they'll just allow them to proceed as is, which really kind of is a bit of a gray area. And if we're going to be moving forward with an external source that's charging us, we also need to understand that we're going to be charged a fee, so we need to kind of recoup that along with the process. So I guess what I'm looking to do is to say I would propose that as we move forward, and it could start anytime, we might start at the first of the year if there needs to be more discussion on it. But for any ILP extensions, that we would provide a 6-month or a 12-month, and then at a 50% or 100% fee, depending upon the 6 or 12 months. And we certainly do have a number of projects that we know are going to take almost 2 years to complete. Some of them are on almost their 3rd year at this point, or at least their 3rd period, over 2 years. So that's fine, but it's something we have to keep track of. There's work to do on our side, so we should be, we should have some compensation for that as we're tracking it moving. Any thoughts on
So
that?
just a quick, we talked about this, maybe last meeting. Did we send one out back then, or this is the first notice?
This was the first notice. I know it says October 30th. But that was an auto date, but the term, the 90 days are up. I know
Yeah,
that.
that's what I got confused by, so that October 30th.
Yeah, when I printed it off, I had auto date on there,
So that's
sorry.
right. It went out, like I said, the 90 days has passed.
Yeah, do you remember, Jen?
Might have been
I
July.
think it was certainly
Yeah.
July timeframe, because it was right after we took over, so mid-July, in July.
Yeah. So 90 days has passed, but there's a note here, you were looking for everybody to confirm receipt.
Yes,
Was that
I did get a number of those confirmed receipt of it, so that the 90-day extension is valid.
Yeah. And then how about like the people that didn't reply, how do we sort of deal with them?
Well, we would just charge them back from the original date. They wouldn't have that 90-day grace period. That's how what I would presume. if they didn't acknowledge receipt
Yeah.
of the 90-day grace period and whatever time frame they fall in, if it's a it may be automatically be a 1-year extension instead of a 6-month extension if we go back. And they might say, I've only got 2 months left. I want a 6-month extension. Well, you never responded to this. We gave you 90-day grace. So we're over that 6 month. It's now 7 months. So you have to pay for the whole year. That would be my
So is
suggestion.
this the trigger point then to send out the new billing to all the expired ILPs? Is that what we're triggering here?
Well, I think what we need to do, yeah, we would trigger that, but it would be we would have to have a letter. This said, we know it's expiring. We're working at the plan commission level to make some changes. We'll give you the 90 days. And after that, we'll let you know what the plan is. So we would simply execute on the plan and let them know what the fee would be.
So, this all makes sense to me, doing this. I guess I have a process question, right? The last time we changed fees, it went up through council and, we went through, right? So what is the next step to get this actually implemented? Because I don't know as though we can just send a letter out and say, hey, you owe us another ILP fee. So is there gonna be is that for the next council meeting or what are we thinking?
That's my recommendation.
Okay, so that's what this
Same
is.
process.
Yeah. Perfect.
It has to be publicized, right, in the paper. So maybe it doesn't have to be in the paper before.
Not least to, but we increase the fee.
Yeah.
You would have to amend the ordinance that says what the fee schedule was.
Yeah, it wouldn't really change on the fee schedule. It's just if their ILP expired, they would have to re-up that same ILP for it to be valid.
So this letter went out in July. So how many people do we know?
Maybe a dozen,
Yeah.
15 at the most.
And how many didn't reply?
I couldn't tell you that offhand. Some came in text, some came in email and
Okay.
I'd have to go back and look. But I would say majority had responded, said, I'll take advantage of the 90 days.
Okay.
I was still new back then. I didn't keep track that much detail.
So do we consider this, like a penalty that people have to pay, or is it just a normal process where, okay, 12 months is up, I need to or is it a renewal? How do we classify it? Some people might be a little bent out of shape. I'd say if I got something in the mail says I got a penalty due,
Yeah.
maybe it's a renewal fee. I just wonder how to sort of soften the reaction.
I think it would be a renewal or an extension, and that's kind of how Stephen County does it. Is okay, here's how it looks, and if you need a 6-month extension, it's this. If you need a 12-month extension, it's X or Y. But it's indicated as an extension because the amount of work is not done within the allotted time. But when you only give a 12-month period, there's a 24-month window on what that's going to be. Then up front, we can at least let them know that they were going to be hitting you up in 12 months or 11 months and putting an extension on requiring an extension for the IRP.
So a couple of thoughts that I have is that it's showing a little bit of a weakness in our current process. I think that a 12-month project is probably approaching more on the rare side. And so limiting our ILPs to 12 months may or may not be the best service to our residents. I think that we should establish an option up front whereby they predict completion of their project, put them in power of their destiny, so to speak. Adjust the price if it needs to be if they're predicting a 2-year project. Accordingly, I don't think it's double. Although we're keeping the books open, we're not actually performing the inspections. the total number of inspections are
True.
changing.
True.
Is a better way to say it. So I'm not sure I would be in favor of completely doubling. You know,
What
the cost.
What about a 12, 18, 24 month? You choose them are your options when you sign it up for your ILP, you get 12, 18, 24 months. And beyond that, then you can get 6 month extensions at half the cost.
It sounds logical, then why wouldn't I just sign it? Or request a 24 month?
Because the 24 month is gonna be
Well,
X number of
Well,
dollars.
yeah, if
and
there's a larger fee with the
Right.
24, good.
That's what I'm saying,
Yeah, I'm with you.
Your fees are more expensive the longer you go.
Yeah,
And then there is an extension, okay?
Available of 6 month
Regardless,
extension.
I'm just saying, give them the option
yeah,
Sure.
to fit within their construction within a window. They set it up front, if things happen, if it's delayed, then we have to have the ability to extend it as
Okay.
well.
So by doing that, we will have to go back and change the UDO. Because there is a UDO change, if you look at the changes, that changed the UDO time slot frame. I think it was 20 months and they moved it down to 12, so it would coincide with Steuben County. So now we're gonna go back and change it back to something else, which which then again requires a UDO change to give those different options.
I mean, from a practical standpoint, though, what people are building around here
Understand?
isn't gonna happen in 12 months.
Understand.
but if I recall the list, there were an awful lot of people that were doing flat work and still didn't get the job done.
Yeah.
You know, so, yeah, for sure, the homes are gonna take 12, but, there's an awful lot of people that drag their feet for who knows whatever reason, and there was one. We all forgot about it. Yeah, I think your neighbor did that one and he waited 11 months and then finally broke ground and we're all like, hey, he didn't even get it. Well, he had a permit, we all forgot about
It
it.
was hanging in the window, but you couldn't see it, because there was such a glare, it was hanging there for, 11 months.
Doing yellow.
Yeah. Just No, started. Yeah, that's, I guess. Do
We can bring a cooler or one to sit on his deck and enjoy it.
So we've got a couple of different options, I think, if.
One size isn't gonna fit all.
One size will not fit all.
No.
So, and that's why we have the different rate structures. So not only we have the rate structures, but we'll have different time frames. Since 12 months seems to be. Say it's short, but
So
I'm looking for a recommendation on.
you're looking to address the immediate 12.
I was looking to address the immediate 12. For those ILPs that have expired. Do we just say, okay, we're not gonna do anything at this point until we go through and make the entire change? As we know, the UDO process may take us a year to make that happen. So do we do that, or do we come up with a short-term solution that provides an expansion option and then look at revamping the UDO to provide a broader range of options that are available for ILP timeframes?
In other words, there's an interim step where we're gonna leave the UDO alone. We're still gonna stay with the 12 months as the standard, right?
Right.
And we're going to offer within the fee structure
Mhm.
a 6 month extension or a 12 month extension at some price, right?
That would be my thought. Yeah.
Okay, so all we have to do in that scenario is modify the resolution, right, the resolution document and align on whatever the price should be.
And yeah, to that point, we could accomplish that tonight, I believe, we could say. 6 month extension proposals, $50. And
Yeah,
that,
yeah.
that modification could have occurred tonight, yeah.
And then,
And then you could send a letter out.
So is there a recommendation on the cost?
Well, maybe we need to look at the fee schedule. There's an awful lot of fees that are only $100, right? Of flat work and.
We can handle it by percentage.
Yeah,
Yeah,
That's what the original fee.
and a home construction is there. How high is an ILP for a full home?
$700 to $800. I think $700 is our largest.
Hmm.
I think those are over the 4,000 square feet.
Yeah. If I recall, there's a lot of flat work, landscape kind of stuff, those are in the $100 range. I was just looking at the schedule the other day, but I can't. See if we can find it.
So 25% for 6 months,
Yeah, it's not floating around my head.
and that's all you need, you just keep coming back for another 6 month extension.
Yeah. At least to get started in Japan.
Yeah, I mean, I think that would be reasonable to get started. 5% for 6 month extension.
Any discussion?
I think that's fine.
I think that's fine too, although if I know I'm building an enormous house and it's gonna take 2 years, it's just more work for us to keep renewing this thing every 6 months. right?
Agreed.
So if it's 25% for 6 months, it's 50% for a year. And that way,
People could just.
they can pick whichever one they want.
Okay.
Where is the current fee schedule? How was that adapted?
How was that adapted?
Adapted through a resolution, through an ordinance, you know, what
Yeah.
is it, or the UDO?
We went to town council. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's just I know, Tyler took it, it got started with Robert and then
Right.
Tyler took it, so it had to be somewhere in the March, April timeframe.
But then I'm thinking this would probably be a recommendation to the town council.
Correct.
It is.
It is, it's a recommendation.
All we're voting on tonight, if we vote, is to. Yay, if you want to recommend it or.
Okay.
no.
That makes sense.
Yeah. And if I recall, it was passed around in the March timeframe, but it was never implemented on the ILP itself. Or shown on there for 3 months. So I actually added that on, not until July timeframe, so we had a missed opportunity to not update that. Undercharging some of our current pricing.
so I'm looking at the fee schedule. The note at the bottom says it was adopted April 15th of this year. So projects of 4,000 square feet or larger are $700. A fence is $100, landscape and flat work is $125, outdoor mechanical equipment. I think that's like probably a generator, is it?
Mhm.
That's 75. Demolitions, 100. The smallest one is well, post demolition inspection. For standard work. Simple work is $100 and the homes start at as low as $200 for a 200 square foot. Somebody's just doing a shed, yeah, it could be $400 for a shed. They put that in.
All right, so 25%
Yeah.
for each 6 month extension.
And here's one that's already on the books, says amendment to site plan. I guess that's not an extension, that's an amendment to the site plan, that's 25% of the original fee, so you're sort of in line with the 25% that we already have out there.
Any comments? Okay. Well, I would make a motion then to establish a ILP extension fee of 25% for each 6 month increment. of time. With a limit of 24 months.
So,
A limit of
so in
24.
other words, I could pony up for 4 6-month periods and just do it all at once. Yeah, just fine. Okay. Yeah, I just want to make, that is clear. I just want to make sure.
No. I wanted to make sure it was not 24 months of extension, it's 24 months total.
No, it's 4 extensions. 6 months each.
So their original ILP is a year.
Could be a
And then
3-year
they could
project.
go, okay, all right.
They're on the lake right now.
That's why I asked for clarification. Okay.
Effective when?
Effective when the original ILP expires.
No,
12 months.
immediately?
12 months.
Upon approval of the town council.
Oh, okay.
Later this month.
Later this month, and we could maybe make it either effective December 1st or, but you know, in my mind, notices were sent out that there was going to be a transition period, and if they accepted that, they knew something was going to be coming anyway, so.
So I second the motion.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Thank you. And just a little bit of housekeeping that we had to come up with. Old Business Ad Hoc Committee for Architectural Standards. With taking on this zoning administration role, my time's been pretty limited to focusing on Plan Commission and BZA, or I'm sorry, Plan Commission and zoning administration. And trying to coordinate meeting times. We've had a lot of people traveling off and on, and trying to get everybody together at one time, it's been difficult. So at this point, you know, we know what the original intent was to really kind of look through the amendments that were in process. We put those on hold for a period of time. And I guess the one that's the most, for me, the one that is, you know, that we're focusing on really is the architectural standards. And as I look through the history, I've been trying to understand the real reason why these standards were changed in the first place. You know, there's a lot of speculation, there's some rumors. I've heard different things of why it was changed. And for me to really take this and push it forward, I would really like to understand from it was done via the executive committee and brought to the plan commission and passed. And there's no documentation as to what, why, where, and how, and what the rationale was behind that. So for me to be more comfortable, I'd like to go back to that original, the members of that original group that passed it, or that was on the executive committee at that time, to get a better understanding before I'm willing to move forward with you know, with looking at these architectural standards from my perspective and further. So that's just those are my thoughts around it. You know, we're back and forth. We've got differing sides, but I will say that that has become those standards have become a very, very I don't want to say contentious at this point, but it's become very detailed, and it has caused a lot of work for the zoning administrator to be able to go through, understand why things are happening the way they are. You know, I know we're not getting a lot of variances with that, but at the same time, there's a lot of discussion happening to get people to make those changes. Some of them are warranted, some they don't feel are warranted. And there's a lot of differing opinions on it, which is why then it needs to go to the BCA. But I think that from my perspective, before it goes any further, understanding that rationale behind it is key importance to be able to support this type of a change at this level of detail. So that's kind of where we are with that. And, if we have some more time during 26, I would say that, it could be picked up at that time. But there probably won't be any other planned activity, at least from my perspective, from now to the end of the year with the additional zoning administrator responsibilities and getting this transition happening with our outside service.
Remind me who was on the ad hoc? That we established.
These three.
Us three right here.
So the update is you're standing down for now?
I am, as far as taking the lead to move it forward, yes.
Yeah, the ad hoc committee is standing down.
Yes. Right. So, if any other thoughts or topics on that, for that discussion?
No, I would say that that Oki and Bill are also wrangling with the bringing online using rating process. And that's our priority.
Yeah, right now, that's not our biggest priority.
Yeah.
Making sure everything gets through, and this has become a rather busy season right now. And everybody wants everything yesterday, so trying to be respectful and responsive to our clientele and our community, that's really where our focus needs to be.
Yeah, I just kind of got a little confused with the discussion about standing down, trying to reconstitute the people who are on there, develop the current architectural standards, and if it's simply a priority issue with time, and this has to take a back seat, that makes sense to me.
That's number one. But the other really is getting the understanding of why the decisions were made when there are a number of, there's a number of ways to skin a cat. And this is very detailed. It's not really much different than what we talked about with the 12 months versus 20 months. We originally had 20 months on the ILP and we went to 12, and now we're going back and having multiple extensions. So my mind is we should, I would personally want to take a step back, understand it from the broader perspective, from the people that actually made the decisions, so that I feel comfortable moving it forward when it comes time to pick it back up.
Where would I go to see the original charter for this committee?
There was no,
we document that.
our committee,
And maybe in the minutes.
our committee. Yeah, we have a charter
Exactly.
for our ad hoc committee.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have a charter.
One meeting, Dennis, I'm not sure which one, it's probably a year now, huh?
It has been a year.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Since February last year,
Yeah.
for this year.
I'm not asking for.
no, I'm just saying, we have
Okay.
we do have the charter.
Yeah.
So it is available. Okay. So that kind of gives an update to the old business. So we'll move forward and get into some interesting topics here. Under new business, we have a proposal for a change to the UDO. And this is 2025-01 Neighborhood Commercial District, which is, many of you are aware, it really pertains a lot to the yacht club, but there's really just a small number of properties that are designated as neighborhood commercial. And It was proposed by Bill, so I'm gonna let him take it from here.
Okay. We have, Jenny, you want to?
I have the first page that basically changed,
Why don't you go to the point, well, just the, what I call it, presentation. So tonight, I thought I'd give everybody some background, we won't be voting on anything per se, just give you some background as to what the motivation of this is, and then, I think from now, maybe to the next meeting. Send some thoughts out and we'll have some email exchange, I believe, and then probably next meeting we'll have something that we can formally. Talk to and propose and consider for formal change. So as Jim mentioned, this is sort of propagated as we were working with the yacht club, trying to determine what they were able to do. And they're in a tight box. In fact, they're going to be coming to the BZA in December. But they're in a bit of a tight box, given the size of the property and the size of the building. And so they were tapping into Jim and I, and we were studying it as much as we could, because neighborhood commercial district standards don't get reviewed very often. And we were learning it quickly, and it seemed like every time we turn a page, we would unfortunately describe to the yacht club folks as more things they were restricted on doing. You can't do that. Oh darn, you can't do that. So that's sort of how things got started. And then I went through just to try and understand a little bit about how the other neighborhood commercial districts are working. So which one do you have? Trying to keep track. Neighborhood commercial zones. Okay. So by way of background, there's 4 locations within the township boundaries designated neighborhood commercial for NC. Just 4. And I'll show you a map where but basically that's comprised of 9 lots. 2 of them are lakefront lots, one being the yacht club and the other being the Steuben County Park, basically, or the public beach. Those are the 2 lakefront properties. Then there's 7 non-lakefront properties. One is the yacht club tennis courts, and that actually comprised of 3 parcels. Then there's 4 privately held accessory structures on South Clear Lake Drive, sort of on the corner of South Clear Lake Drive and 700 or the Marina Road. Probably all of you know there's 4 garages there. They're privately held. They're essentially rental storage garages. And one of them might be only for personal use. I'm not certain, but they're zoned neighborhood commercial. There's 4 garages there. There's 1 commercial facility, that's the pub, basically, and that's on 1 lot. And then there's 1 location that's privately held on Lakeside Court, and that's actually 2 parcels. And if you may recall, they were here looking for a variance a number of years ago to rezone those particular properties to Lake Assessor, I believe. They're very, very small, and there was limited flexibility of what they could do with them. So that's sort of the lay of the land. The next slide just shows you on the map where those properties are. If you're a visual person, so you got the pub and the public beach in one location. You've got the yacht club proper in another location. You have the yacht club tennis courts in the 3rd location, and you have those storage garages on the corner of 700 and South Clear Lake Drive. Those are the 4 properties around the lake. And then by way of background on the next slide.
They didn't bring the map up.
Yeah, it didn't bring a map. Then right out of the UDO, this is the first, each zoning district, as we know, has basically there's 2 pages. The first page, which describes the district intent, the permitted uses, and special exemption. Nothing really in particular here that I want to point out, but that's the first page. The second page is of interest. This is really where the standards are defined. That first page just is a illustration of, what the lots look like. Couple of key points here is the minimum lot area is 15,000 square feet. Minimum lot width is 100 feet. Then you come over to the right, it's all the setbacks, pretty straightforward. And then the third one on the right is a particular one is minimum lot coverage, 35% of the lot area. And then there's a minimum floor space or minimum main floor area is 1,000. The maximum main floor is 4,000. So there's a couple of areas in here that we'll highlight, and I'll get into some more detail, but one of the very tight restrictions is the 35% lot coverage. That's the tightest restriction that I could find on any of the districts that we have. Most of our lake residentials are in the 50% range, but actually that number goes up as the size of your building goes up. But that particular one is the tightest we have of all the districts. The size of this, the square footage of the building, we don't have a restriction on homes today. We see homes going way over 4,000 square feet, but we have a restriction on that neighborhood commercial. These are just interesting points and sort of issues that we ran into as we're working with the yacht club. And like I said, as I started studying them, the unique features or unique standards were popping out to me. And the last slide here is nothing in particular, but it's actually because of they were in landscape mode and in portrait mode, I had to break it up. And let's go to the next slide. So some of the relevant standards, I probably already repeated these. Minimum lot area is 15,000 square feet. I mentioned we had one location that's a privately owned, and they're well under 15,000 square feet. And in fact, those privately held garages, a number of those are under 15,000 square feet. Minimum lot width. Got issues with a number of lots here, and even the yacht club ran into that a little bit because that piece of property that they acquired was 60 feet. And in order to make it compliant or conforming, if you recall, we had to require them to combine the lots, which we would have anyway, but that was just a point of order that we had asked the yacht club to go through. Maximum coverage is 35%. As I mentioned, that's extremely low in comparison to all the others. And then the max floor area, 4,000 square feet. These are likely the areas for consideration as we go forward for change. I'm not proposing anything today, but those are the areas that I believe we need to take a hard look at. Next page is some interesting data. So I used Beacon to acquire all the data, and as we all know, it's not exactly accurate, other than with the yacht club. With the yacht club, I had full surveys. Everything else is Beacon related data. A lot of information here. Each one of the lots is identified in the owner, although I did block out privately held, just I thought that made sense for this presentation, so I didn't display those. There's the lot size and acreage, lot size, square footage, and then the buildings that are there. And then you get into flat work, and if it's flat work, if it's brick pavers or gravel, there's a factor, if you will. So like a gravel driveway really only gets coded as 90% of the total because it still is pervious to water, so they don't use a full 100%. So you go through these calculations and you get your total coverage. And then you basically make calculations and look at conformance. Now, there is also some unique situations relative to the road coverage. A number of the properties, the property boundary goes into the Clear Lake Road or sometimes even to the other side. So right now, we don't make any change, that road is included in the coverage. And it's a fairly large amount in some cases, so it will definitely skew the coverage percent. And then I went through and made all the calculations. If go to the next slide, and it's color coded and it'll jump out as to what, where we're at. There's a, is the colors not showing up there? Oh, there we go, yeah. So a lot of red on the chart. Those are all the areas of non-conformance. And then the green is the areas of conformance. So, like I said, the conformance is relatively low. The yacht club, the new lot, because there's nothing on it at all, is conforming, but we really asked them to combine it. So then in a combined fashion, if you include the road, they are non-compliance. If we pull the road out, the combined lot is right at the conformance, 33.9. So might even be within air mode, but they did some pretty careful calculations to understand where they're at. But they still have some restrictions that you'll see at the BZA in a couple of weeks. The yacht or the tennis courts, even the tennis courts are non-compliant, and that's the case where their property extends over to the road, and naturally it's all paved, but they've got non-compliant situation there. The Steuben County Park is fully compliant. The pub is terribly non-compliant. The building itself is 8,500 square feet. You're only allowed 4,000. And then their coverage is at 70% or something, I think. Yeah, 70%. So they're not even close. And then the storage garages, the small, they're most of it, they're all non-compliant in terms of lot size. And then consequently, the coverage is also non-compliant. So, with all those examples of non-compliance, I thought it made sense for us to look at this a little more carefully. Maybe way back then when it got established, there wasn't a lot of focus on that, on that particular district, because there's so few of them. And maybe it just sort of got boilerplated in and everybody moved on and nobody raised the flag. I don't know the history. But like I said, I thought it might make sense for us to look at this one a little bit closer in light of what we're seeing. Next slide is just a summary of what I mentioned. So in terms of the conformance summary, 2 lots of 9 meet the NC standards. 4 of the 9 meet the minimum lot area, and 3 lots of the 9 meet the maximum coverage. Or I could say it the other way, 6 of the 9 do not meet it. So a large percent. So that's the summary. I've got a UDO change proposal, which will be dubbed 2025-1. And I don't have a proposal today as to where we go, other than, the potential language from is in the minimum lot area, the minimum lot coverage, and then in the maximum floor area would be areas for, I believe, potential review.
Thank you, Bill. Any comments, thoughts? I will say the one comment I have is, if you think about a commercial property, you've got a lot of parking, people coming and going, it's going to be a public location. It's a go-to point. So to only allow 35% of the property to have coverage, this to me just doesn't make sense. Because it's a destination, you're going there, you're expecting a lot of people, and especially for us, the way the community uses the yacht club, this particular, and the tennis courts, it makes sense. The tennis courts are all flat, you've got parking area. Does it make sense that should have only 35% coverage? And in my mind, it's not something that I can really wrap my head around that says, yeah, this makes a lot of sense. So I think from those perspectives, I'm very much in support of looking at this and carefully making some changes through the UDO process to, have this align a little bit better with some of our expectations and maybe some of our needs and what we're willing to do. There are a number of people that asked if, and just to reiterate, if the marina is considered neighborhood commercial, it is not. There's a district code of MA for marina. So I think, to kind of help dispel some of the myths that are out there, I just thought it would be important to reiterate that fact.
Yeah, so a couple of thoughts here. First off, I think it's a great that we're looking at this. In my mind, there's been a lot of talk about the yacht club. This really isn't about the yacht club at all. The yacht club's getting caught up in this, but this is a case where we have numbers of structures and developments that predate the UDO as it's written, right? So none of these are close to being conforming, not only in this particular issue, but I had a conversation with the church and the Lutheran church up here, and they're in an institutional grouping. There's only two properties. One is the church and the other is this building. But as you know, you pull off the pavement and park along the side. They do that at the yacht club. They do that at the pub. But our UDO, and you saw the drawings that Bill showed earlier, is when it comes to parking, is more oriented around North Wayne Street and Angola, where I've got a 40-mile-an-hour speed limit, and I need to have certain distances between driveways and so on and so forth. Our world is a little bit more like Fremont, where they park in the street, they park at angles. But the reason I bring the church up is they want to replace a section of concrete that is badly pitted. It's very difficult for people in walkers to walk across, but they can't because the minute they pull it out, they can't replace it. And so that's, I think, an example of unintended consequences. I don't know what the plans are necessarily for the yacht club, but they got similar parking. I think it's a case where if you look at the environment we're in, and then you look at the building situation in a broad sense, and when you see a big disconnect, and this is clearly one of them, I think the parking is another one, where perhaps the UDO was not really written with the best interests of Clear Lake as a community in mind. So kudos to you, Bill, for looking at this. I think as it relates to lot coverage, you pointed out the 50% allowance of light residential, which is also true. When you look at kind of benchmark lot coverages for commercial, it goes all the way from 100%, think of downtown Fremont, to 30% is very much on the low end. And it's only really in residential areas. Most commercial lot coverages range from about 60 to 80%. So the pub even being at 80% really isn't, for what it is and where it is, isn't really out of line. It just is what it is. So, it doesn't, I think taking a look at this and finding a reasonable percentage that doesn't just pave over everything here, but also acknowledges where we're at is right on. So kudos there. The only other comment I will make is just in the calculations. I agree that having the road in the calculations is not, causes sometimes undue hardship. But I would make sure that not only do I pull the road out of the coverage, the numerator, but I'm also going to need to pull the road out of the denominator as well, as if the road didn't exist. And just as a point, I mean, if you do it that way, the yacht club's coverage is 39.4%. So they're kind of already over in a non-conforming point. But I think as we kind of do the calculations and write whatever the protocol is about, here's how you calculate it, you can think that point. And I think that's it. But I also think as we're looking at these different districts, I think just maybe taking a step back on the parking one is the one that kind of jumps out at me, and I know we would need to. You know, do an allowance if someone ever wanted to add, and then if they did, how do we do drainage? And then there's a whole thing that we'd have to go through, but. Simply just, you know, as we repave these roads, we're running, you know, we run into this, so. Anyway, that's enough said, but I think we're heading the right way.
So I would find myself not in favor of addressing these challenges with neighborhood commercial, and the reason for that is that. Nowhere in the comprehensive plan. Does it focus in on or encourage commercial developments? In fact, it does primarily the opposite. And the UDO was developed as a result of trying to enact and preserve the comprehensive plan and put it into an ordinance. So all of these properties that we're looking at, and Bill, I'm not taking away your assessment, it was a very good assessment. I'm just saying all of these properties were pre-existing to the UDO. And so all of these are legal non-conforming in that sense. And we have a process. If a particular neighborhood, a pre-existing neighborhood commercial entity is doing an important service to the community or a valued service to the community, then they should be seen favorable in a BZA process. And so for that reason, I don't think that changing the UDO to make it easier for commercial developments is doing right by the comprehensive plan. So that's my thoughts on that, just a top down.
There was one other element that I just recently stumbled into is that in some cases, there's another element required for commercial lots is to have a boundary yard. So when you have a low intensity per the UDO, I'm again speaking in general terms here, per the UDO, if you have a high intensity and a low intensity adjacent lots, the high intensity lot is required to have a 20-foot boundary yard. So in the yacht club case, they've got now lake residents on both sides of them. And per the UDO, they would be required for a 20-foot boundary yard, which I think there's some intent to put some landscaping in anyway, but that is a firm requirement and could potentially also get into the calculation. In Jim's working with the yacht club to help them understand and we can comply with that, but it's just another element of performance that we need to look at.
Yeah, and I think I have not seen the yacht club's request of the BZA, but I do think that the BZA can be a very difficult way to affect change. I don't know, is the yacht club going to claim a hardship because of that they can't do X or Y? You know, it's a pretty high bar, as it should be. I think most BZA decisions have gone against the applicant, and rightly so in most cases, and the bar is high. So I think philosophically, I think having a UDO that reflects yes, the values of the community and also the places in the community that we're all going to already can smooth things out a bit when we're in a situation like we're at and with the
Yeah, for sure. We won't have a change to this in time for the yacht club and enact on their desires. But just sort of set the stage and we'll see where it goes.
Thank you.
You got that here. Thank you. All right, any further comment and discussion? With that,
move on to item 2. Under new business, well, one of the things that I wanted to address and just make people aware of is the non-conforming structures and the non-conforming lots. This is Article 8 within the UDO. It talks all about non-conformances, but as we're having more and more of the existing structures, it's a lot more of our, as we make these changes, more and more of our structures are becoming non-conforming. So I think if we were to guess, and I would hate to guess, what's the percentage of non-conforming structures that we have versus conforming? I would say it's probably pretty evenly matched, if not, lopsided. But a couple of things that I think are important to know is on a non-conforming structure, any repair and maintenance can be done to that.
Okay, that sheet, if you want to go through it, the sheet I sent in.
Your summary?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't see it.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
We can do it either way, because I knew we're probably gonna say the
Say
exact
the same thing, yeah. But and you can go through years, really what I wanted to say is the maintenance, so long as it's, if we want to keep it safe, aesthetically pleasing and in functional condition, then repairs and maintenance can be done to non-conforming. The other piece that I think is really important, a number of people had asked, hey, how can we have a couple of these 40-foot lots built upon? And we thought they were supposed to be merged together. We thought we have a 50-foot minimum. Why are we doing that? Well, these are non-conforming lots, but you can build on a non-conforming lot as long as your structure is conforming to all of the UDO standards. So that really raises the issue of how we were able to, or how people were able to develop new homes on 40-foot lots that had been undeveloped and have been sitting there for a long time. And they were set. Now, there are some nuances that if there are lots being used in combination, so if somebody owns 2 lots and their current property extends over a lot, or the structure extends over the 2 lots, that is required to go through the administrative subdivision process. If the person decides to say, I don't want to do that, and they remove the portion that's spanning both properties, both parcels then become undevelopable. So we have that in there that says, you just can't, say, I want to change my mind and parse this off or do that. It really is there. So we've got some protection built in. Some of the challenge really becomes on the legal non-conforming structure, it's building expansions. So most of, or I would say some of the ones we're dealing with right now, the buildings are legal non-conforming. So how much can they expand? What can they do? This has taken up a considerable amount of time working with the individuals to understand, number one, what's the non-conforming issue? How do we bring it in? What are the parameters? Then how much do we apply to it? So I just think it's important to know that it would be good for most everyone to review this, understanding what the non-conformancies are, how we need to apply the new UDO standards when changes are made, and how that happens and what's expected. So and what I started to do is, if there was a non-conforming structure that got modified and changed, and it's only the aesthetics, it's the outside, it was the roof, maintenance, repair, I made a note for that particular property in OneNote and said, here's the non-conforming repair and maintenance component and what it applied to. So that down the road, later on, if we have somebody saying, hey, why did you do this? Why did we do that? Then we at least have evidence that says, this is what it looked like before. These were the maintenance and repairs that were done, so therefore it falls under the non-conforming. So be able to do the maintenance. So that's really kind of what I wanted to say. I didn't realize you had the summary. Sorry, Bill.
I think you covered really all the points. I'll just bring it up since Jim and I have been spending so much time together. We've had to educate ourselves and become really familiar. It just seems like this section 8 is all about non-conformance. It is well used, more so than I had really knew prior to the intensity that Jim and I have been putting into it here of late. So it's a really important element of the UDO. I believe it's well written. Takes a little time to get clear in your head, but once it is, I find it useful and a good guiding light for us on how we approve ILPs going forward. Takes a little while to get to digest it, but once it's digested, it's well written.
And it is well written. I will say though that even though we both read it, we both read it from different perspectives at different times. Then to have the conversation about, well, I thought it was this and I thought it was this. Well, but it means this, well, it means that. So no matter who's looking at it, there's going to be a little bit of an interpretation issue no matter what. So you're going to get to a 95% understanding and we agree on it. If there's an issue, that's why we have Mike, who just toss it over to legal and say, Mike, we need your official legal interpretation. But for the most part, it is well written. It's spelled out pretty well and it really helps guide us. It's helped to guide us in a lot of the conversations that we've had lately. And it also then has helped to minimize some of the BZA variance requests that are coming through. So if we show them, hey, here's what it is, you're legal, yes, non-conforming. I got a 50-year-old house and I want to do this and I'm going to add on to it. And while I'm going to add on to it, what are you telling me that I have to adhere to the new? Well, it's legal non-conforming, but there's certain things within it that they're changing. And because those changes are in effect, they have to meet the UDO standards. And we've got this issue of you can't increase non-conformancy. So what does that mean? And that means you can't do it on all elements. So if there's 5 different things, it might hit 4, but that last one isn't covered. Well, it has to hit all 5. So that's where we've had to sit down and really have some very heart-to-heart conversations with some people that are longtime residents that have had their homes for a long time. And as we make some of these changes, they certainly don't understand it. And they don't agree with it, but if they still want to come to the BZA, they can certainly do that. But I just think it's important that, this is kind of that component we look at as we're doing more changes to the UDO and we have older homes. I mean, it's easy if somebody comes in, bulldozes the house and starts from scratch. That's easy. It's the expansions, the additions, the alterations, it's the add-ons that become very complex and very time consuming. So that's all I wanted to say about that. Any other thoughts? Did everybody just ignore the documents or? All right. And then what I wanted to do is the next item is really tee up what we're looking at for 2026. So it's kind of things that we've taken away from this year. And where are we going and what should 2026 look like? Dan, you have the.
Yeah, I'm trying.
Okay. So taking that up, I've got it broken down into a couple of sections. one are really UDO topics and changes. What do those look like? And after our meeting this morning, and we talked about the three phases that we're starting with from an external standpoint of how we would work with hometown initiatives. I kind of ranked them and put some of the highlighted ones that are priority in which phase. I don't have it here. I didn't want Jen to have to do that at the last minute. But first and foremost, you have it up there?
Yeah.
Okay. The review of the neighborhood NC district, we'll take a look at that. Primary structure addition, I put, clarification, I put that as a priority that's gonna fall under phase 2. And that is a couple of people with larger lots want to add on to their existing home. Well, what does that mean? And, well, gee, I want to put a garage on and sleeping quarters. Well, you can't do that. We don't allow sleeping quarters in garages. But if you want to expand your existing home and enlarge it, and that's your primary structure, okay, here are the things that you need to, well, can I just put a catwalk between the two and call it a day? And so we spent a little bit of time on that, quite a bit of time on that. And how do we do that? We said, the catwalk doesn't cut it. But if the foundation is joining and you have a common area that's joined through the foundation, then we would say, okay, that is one building. You're adding on to your existing building. The catwalk simply says, I'm just looking for a covered space. And the UDO does say you can allow that. It kind of does it in an off sense. It doesn't allow it if it's not climate controlled. So it's like, well, if it's climate controlled, then you can have that. But so there's a lot of nuances to that. So that's one area I think that as we look through, and if we're going to rely on someone else to be interpreting this and use this for guidance, we really need to shore up that language and kind of minimize that. Just so that as expansions of existing homes are happening, we can do it appropriately. I've got ILP not started within 90 days. One of the things I'm looking at is to say, we had a start date, we had the request date, and then we had the filing, then we had the date it was signed. That kicks it off. I think what I'm looking at doing is changing it a little bit to have it come in, get it requested. Here's an approved date, but here is your effective date. So if I have somebody that says, gee, I came in December or January and I have it approved, but my project's not going to start until April, I've already exceeded the 90 days. So why don't we make the effective date starting in April rather than saying when it's signed, it's done. But so there's some little nuances that we can kind of look at to eliminate some of these challenges that we've been facing in terms of the 90-day, the 6 months, and the follow-ups. And that also then allows us to change when we go out and do some inspections. Administrative subdivisions is another one that we need to look at. Been working with Nathan, and he has gone down to the county. They have certain requirements that they need. And what we currently have in the UDO is a little bit different. So they might have changed what they're doing. So we have to go to the recorder's office with one set, get the recording back, then take it back again to the auditor's office with the quitclaim deeds and the other information. So it's a couple of step process that's not really well laid out that we need to kind of hone in on. Again, if we have somebody else doing this work, we want to make sure that we're there and we're accurate. Within the zoning administration, we talked about the ILP renewals, 6-month, 1-year extension. Those are priority. Letters of non-objection, it's required by Steuben County. Again, if we're having someone else do this, we're putting in letters of non-objection. We have to look and see what's going on. If it's maintenance only, but there's something to do with electrical in the house, Ben County requires someone to come out and do the electrical inspection. We don't, but Steuben County wants a letter of non-objection by us. A well installation or septic or grinder pump. I know guys put through a number of them. It's time consuming. It's a letter of non-objection. Yep, that's fine. But again, it's time consuming. It takes time to do this, to verify, and then get that information out. Is it significant? No. And it's not significant when you have someone that's employed, but it may be significant when you have someone that you're hiring on an hourly basis and contracting with to take that time to do that. So there's just some little nuances. Those are the highlights for to get the kicked off of phase 2. I have inspections under phase 4. We don't always do a lot of inspections. We should. We've got a number of them that we talk about pre-pour, and we need footings and as I've been in this, I've been able to kind of hone in on what and when needs to be inspected and how. You know, and part of this I got from the county. The first one, setback stakes and survey stakes. We've had survey stakes in, but we really haven't done a good job of having setback stakes put in on the property. So I think it would be important that the outline, the property also include, in addition to the property stakes, also include the building lot line out there. So that's something else that we can include and say, we need this in there in the ILP, we need this in the request or the site plan, and we want to transfer that. Now, when we go out and do measurements and such, there's no question as to, you know, is it there, is it not there, and hopefully make life a lot simpler. And you'll see some of the others, but that would be in phase 4 during the inspection process. And then there's a number of processing enhancements that need to happen. Part of that is we're in the process of conversion to electronic papers, or getting rid of the paper and having as much as we can electronically. And then it would be available to multiple people. Multiple people can update it, can see it, can read it. And logistics wise, it doesn't matter where you're located, we can go through that process. The other thing that I was doing is detail ILP instruction packets based on district and type of project. When people are coming in, they say, hey, do I need an ILP? Yes. All right, what do I need to do? So I would simply, here's the LR district, here's the driveway standards, here's this, put it in a nice little packet, email it to them, and they still wouldn't read the instructions, and what happens, they can call back. So, but that's just a matter of training. It's a matter of going back and saying, hey, it's in there, and keep pushing it back to the people that are doing it, and kind of, it's not our job to do that, that's their job. What do you want? We'll help you from a guiding standpoint, but we're not going to do the work for you. So I think that's really important, especially if we're paying someone from the outside. We don't want them coaching the client or the requester. We don't want them coaching that, and that also has some bit of a risk to it as well. Now, we're coaching them on what to do. They can always come back and say, well, you told us to do that. So, you know, the goal is really to eliminate that. And then the last item, the pre-purchase consulting. Number of people now that as they're buying property, they're coming in saying, what can I do with this property? I'm interested. I don't want to spend $1 million unless I know what else I can do with the property. So today we're not charging for that. And I think we need to kind of look at that and say, what do we do? How do we charge? Or how do we do that for, number one, future Lakers or future people in the town? That's number one. But the other is, what if they don't buy? So are we giving those services away? They're already, you know, they're paying a surveyor, they're paying for an architect to draw some things up. They can certainly pay someone to do pre-purchase consulting, and whether that is done through hometown initiatives or some other way, I think for them that will be money well spent from that perspective. So that's kind of what the thoughts are on 2026, some of the strategies, what we're looking at. I only highlighted those that I think are most important right now to get us through this phase 1, 2, and 3 with hometown initiatives during the trial period. And that's not to say any of the others are less important. It's just that there's a slate of things that we'll be looking at over the next year to try to help, hone the process and streamline it and make it a little more efficient. Any thoughts or comments on the kind of our plan for next year?
It's a busy list, with integrating the hometown initiative and trying to make all this happen. Yeah, it's gonna be busy times.
Well, I think some of these, I think my goal would be, I would call on some of the members of the planning commission to help out with some of these, at least maybe oversee or provide some guidance as to where we can go with it. That way we have a little bit of variety and kind of get a little bit moving in the right direction. And also, as you start to dig into some of this, you really see some of the details surrounding what happens and the decisions we make here, how that affects things downstream. But, yeah. We may not get to all of them, but we gotta start somewhere. Okay. Anything else?
Well, I think what this points out, I guess my high level take on this is that your time in the seat, you're basically pointing out the root cause of why we see variations when we have hired zoning administrators in the past, because a lot of this that you're pointing out needs some structure, needs some definition in order to develop a consistent result, and it's missing. And so that was left up to the zoning administrator sitting in the seat to do what they thought was best. And so from that perspective, it's really not connected to hometown initiatives. It's really connected into us putting how we want the zoning administration office to run and produce consistent, reliable results. So thanks for putting this list together, and we'll endeavor to work through it.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, and to give someone the latitude to make a decision, as Bill and I iterated earlier, when it comes to some of the non-conforming, we've had long discussions about one particular property, back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. And, we feel we know this pretty intently, and we have a pretty good perspective on it. And if we are going back and forth on that, to leave this to someone at their sole discretion to be able to make that decision, that either doesn't do it every day, or they're new to it, or, they might get influenced in some way, or they're just not sure. And oftentimes people are afraid to come and ask, because that could be a potential, I don't know what I'm doing, or, it's a point of weakness if you ask, which it really isn't. I think that will help shore this up, no matter who's in the position or how we bring this forward. So, yeah, just a few holes in the dike that we need to plug, that's all. Okay. The last item I have is the meeting schedule for 2026. Notice Monday, May 4th and November 2nd are put in as Mondays as opposed to Tuesday, because both of those Tuesdays are voting days, which is what today is, but it's pretty minimal voting at this point. So I would look for a motion to accept the meeting schedule for 2026. So moved. Second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Thank you. And I would propose that I'd make a motion that we adjourn this meeting at this time. Second. All in favor? Aye. All right, meeting adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
That'd be good.
Excellent. All the way. Good. It's got very.
Yep.